And well, I'm at the tail end of a seizure cluster. Oops, I have paint on me. I was making Christmas crafts, and I'm covered in paint. Isn't that fun? Sorry about that. Oh well. At least I can tell I've been working. Well, I'm at the tail end of a seizure cluster, and I thought I'd share how it's been going. The seizures that I talked about in my last video, the one that with the really bad second, third shift nurses, that was the start of my seizure cluster. Since then, I have had 15 seizures in about 6 days. So it's not a heavy cluster, but it is a regular cluster. And I've had 5 or 6 that have required some intervention or have been in public. I had one on the way back from the dining room. I tend to eat my lunch in the public dining room so that I get like a change of scenery. And I was on my way back, and I had a seizure in the hallway, slipped out of my chair. And of course, if the brakes are off, then the chair rolls back a little when I start to fall out of it. And I end up with half my body under the chair and half my body not under the chair. And then my back like goes on the feet. Here. Chair. Where's the chair? There it is. You see the little feet here, and they have these posts that stick out on the bottom of the feet. And my back ends up on those posts that goes like this, and then I end up with these weird little like poke bruises across my back. Not fun, and it stays in the muscle tissue for a few days. Hurts like crazy. Of course, I'm in the hallway, and I go whoosh right out of my chair. And I'm going like this, underneath the chair, with right on those posts, and I freak out. Jimmy, who was behind me, he's one of the guys in my physical therapy. He's about my age, and so he's calling for help, and oh my God, it was terrible. So I had to come and get me up, put me back in my chair. So that was one intervention. And then I had one, I had just come out of therapy, and went into a seizure. Now, it didn't require, I didn't hurt myself, nothing. I was transferring from the chair to my bed, and I just kind of slid really gentle. I was in between the chair and my bed and the nightstand, just like in a little circle. The chair, which is over here right now, was right up against the bed, so it was right here. And of course, the nightstand, which then moved over, was right here against the bed. And then me. So I was in this nice big little like nook and had my little seizure, and basically they just came and picked me up and put me up in the bed. Didn't get hurt, didn't hit anything, nice and cozy. But apparently, Scott, which is my occupational therapist that works on my upper body and my hands and that kind of thing, so that I seemed slightly off when I was leaving. He just figured I was tired. But apparently I was pre-ictal, which is like the beforehand of the seizure, and as soon as I got to my room and started transferring, boom, seizure, right down into a nice safe spot. It's just once I get on the floor, I can't get back up again. So they had to come pick me up and put me in the bed. No big deal. But then I had a couple that were slightly more big deal. I actually had one in the therapy room in front of, there had to have been 6 people in the room. It was Jimmy, and there was Dolly, and then there was 3 of the older gentlemen that aren't really all there, and I kind of scared a couple of them really bad because I had a seizure and I went right out of my chair. Now, because I was in the physical therapy room, and Dolly and Jimmy both started going, Scott, Laura, she's seizing. They were able to catch me before I flew under the chair or anything like that. And then Laura moved the chair, and Joel had my head, and Scott had my shoulders, and they eased me to the floor, and everything was safe. And I had 4 physical therapists all around me because I had Scott and Joel were the 2 guy therapists that were on that day, and then I had Laura, who is my personal physical therapist, and then I had Jala, and I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I might not be. She has a really weird name. who is in charge of physical therapy, she was also there watching and over me and making sure that everything was okay. And then my favorite nurse, well, CNA, had come in to make sure that I was okay. So I was fine. But I freaked out all of the people in the physical therapy room. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing. Once it was over, we got me back in my chair. I had a couple minutes to process and so on, and then we were able to finish physical therapy after about a 10-minute break because I was almost done. But still, it was like, oh man, this is ridiculous. This is really ridiculous. But then I also had two major incidences. Now, mind you, these are not in any kind of order. I'm just putting them in the order of least to worst. I had one seizure that I did not fall out of the bed or anything like that. I managed to have the seizure lying in bed. I was sitting like this. You'll notice that my bed is not raised in any way or anything like that. I was just sitting in bed. I believe I was working on a craft because I've been doing a lot of crafting for Christmas to get the store ready for Christmas sale. And I woke up with my head, laying down, and my head was hurting, and I thought, oh God, I had a seizure, and I put my hand where my head hurt. I sat up, took a couple deep breaths. Oh, my head hurts, like you do. I pulled my hand down, and my hand was all covered in red. I mean, covered. So then I took my other hand, and I did the same thing. What the heck? And I went like this a couple times, and man, my head hurts. And I brought it down, and again, just covered. And then it dawned on me that it was covered in blood. Because, of course, it takes a few minutes after you have a really good seizure for your brain to turn back on. And so I hit the nurse button, and I'm in kind of a panic. Because, again, my brain's not totally functioning. I have a throbbing headache, and now there's blood. And so I put my hand back on my head. I put both hands on the back of my head, and I'm just holding the back of my throbbing head. And now I'm starting to panic, and so I'm starting to get emotional. And my brain still hasn't reset because I'm not giving it time to reset because I'm being in this panic. I needed to calm down and let my brain reset, but I was having trouble doing that, obviously. So I'm panicking. What you can do? And one of the CNAs walk in, and she gets not used to seeing me upset. What the heck? Renee, what's the matter? And I just turned my hands over. And I said, I had a seizure. And I turned both my hands over like this, and they're just dripping with blood. It's running down my arms, everything. And she flies out of here. I've never seen her move so fast. In search of a nurse, an actual RN. In the meantime, I come to enough senses to take a picture of my hands and the headboard of the bed up here was just covered in blood here and all on the wall. Just covered in blood. And I have some pictures. I'll see if I can get them attached to the end of the video. It just covered. My hands weren't dripping down my arms quite yet when I took the pictures, but by the time the CNA and the nurse had gotten here, they were dripping down my arms with blood. And oh my God, it was so bad. There was just blood everywhere. So of course the nurse comes in and she says, what's wrong? And I said, I'm pretty sure I had a seizure. She says, okay, honey, I'll look you over. And then I did the same thing. I just turned my hand. And she went, oh my gosh. Okay, somebody go get me a couple of washcloths. And she says, where are you bleeding from? And I went like this. And that's it. I just went like this. And she immediately said, okay, somebody call 911 and get an ambulance out here. And, the whole 9 yards. I had to go to the emergency room and, have that looked at. And I had a concussion. The spot that was bleeding, I had hit it repeatedly on that headboard, whack, 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 whack. So there were all these little lines that had cut open, but nothing serious enough to require stitches because I hadn't repeatedly hit the exact same spot. Thank God. I had hit, and then I'd hit, and then I'd hit, and then I'd hit, and like this. And so they had all these little Oh, it still hurts. Pokes back there from where it had hit the bed. And so I have all these little tiny scabs running across the back of my head where I had hit that bedpost, the headboard. And it's really frustrating. Hold on. But the nurse that I had that night was one of the ones that usually works days. And she is a good woman. She's not one of the normal second, third shifters that are not good. They're not good. She is one of the day shifters that I actually liked her. I was surprised that she was on. And so she was very comforting and sweet. She stayed with me until the ambulance came, and she wiped all the blood off my hands, and she held, not I held, she held a cold washcloth to the back of my head to try and stop some of the bleeding, and that kind of thing. It was really sweet. And then, not yesterday, the day before, I had another major seizure. I had two, actually. I had a small one shortly after therapy, and I'd fallen out of my chair, and I landed on my knee, and I bruised it. It's nothing, I just bruised it. And I was stuck on the floor, no one near a call button, yada, yada. And they found me, and they had to pick me up, put me in my chair, and I was all embarrassed, but it wasn't a big deal. But I was upset and frustrated, and I started crying. And Christina, my favorite CNA, this woman is amazing. I can't even begin. This woman is so amazing. She brought my lunch tray in, set it on my TV tray thing. Here, I'm going to show it to you. This is my TV tray. Let's see if you can see it. There we go. It's got the tray. It's got this long post here, and then of course crossbars, like a hospital tray. And she had put my lunch on it, but she could tell that I was upset. Usually if I'm upset, I can just say I'm fine, and 98% of the time I can get people to just accept it and go. She was not having it. She was not having it. She shut the bedroom door, and right now I don't have a roommate, so she could spend as much time as she needed to with me. And she shut the door, and she would not leave until I told her what was going on. And I told her how upset I was and how tired I was of being treated badly, and how frustrated I was, and how tired I was of hearing people stand right outside my door and say things like, the girl faking her seizures, and the attention grabbing, things like attention grabbing, and fake, and Munchausen, and stupid, and cuss words, all pointed at me as they stand right there outside my door, because that's where they park the cart when they hand out medications or food or that kind of thing. And so they cluster right there outside my door between my room and the next. And they had these long conversations like I'm deaf or something about me right outside my door. And I keep hearing these things, these horrible things that paid professionals are saying about me. And my heart just sinks. And I was so frustrated, and I was so upset. And Christina was so righteously indignant. She was so profusely angry on my behalf. And she puts the tray down, and we talked for a few minutes, and she told me she's going to hand out the rest of her trays, and then she'd come back and check on me. And I remember that. But that's the last thing I remember. And then there was this really, really distant voice shouting. There was a lot of disgruntled shouting.
And I opened my eyes. It was really dark and everything was fuzzy. When I opened my eyes, and there was Jala, I still think I'm saying that right. This tall, beautiful, red hair coming everywhere. Wow, that works in physical therapy, the head of physical therapy. She's holding my head and my neck really straight, I mean really, really straight. And Christina running around in a panic. And there was all this fear on Jonna, it might be Jonna's face. Jonna just looked so panicked, so fearful. And then everything went black again. There was just nothing. And then there was more shouting. And when I opened my eyes again, Jonna was still there. But there were more people in the room. And she was shouting something about code blue and get the nurse. I don't care if she's at lunch. If you have to call a code blue. She wasn't breathing when I got here. And something in the back of my mind went, who wasn't breathing? And then there was a warm hand on my leg, and I realized that there was also a warm hand on my back. So I tried to move, and I couldn't. And so I shifted my eyes, and I could see Christina rubbing my leg, and I could just make out Tyler, one of the physical therapists, holding my back real steady, like against my shoulder, like he was helping Jalen keep me real straight. And I could see a few other people moving around in the room, but I couldn't tell you who they were. And then my eyes just kind of kept drifting.
Morning.
Morning, Scott.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Physical therapist, like him. But things just kind of kept drifting in and out, like I wasn't quite there. And I kept hearing Jonna screaming about, but she wasn't breathing. The nurse needs to hurry. She wasn't breathing. And Christina shouting, did you see the color of her face, and her lips were so blue? And I was having trouble figuring out who they were talking about. It's like my brain hadn't turned on. And then somebody walked in, and they rolled me, a couple of nurses, or I don't know, somebody walked in, and there was like 20 people in the room by this point. Okay, there wasn't really 20, but you know what I mean. And they rolled me over on my back, which really hurt. And I realized that it really, really hurt because I was on top of that tray unit, this thing, which was laying on the floor, and they were trying to get it out from under me. And so they get this thing out from underneath me, and now they're laying me down, and I realize that I'm laying on the floor, and I'm wet, like my shirt and my shoulders and things, and I realize that something had spilled, and I'm laying in something that had spilled. And somebody had put down washcloths, and I recognized the smell, and I realized I'm laying in a puddle of iced tea. And things are starting to click, and I realize I'm laying on my lunch tray. My lunch had been on my lunch tray. I'm laying in my lunch. Nice. That's when they begin to realize that I'm up and awake. And Jala just starts rubbing my shoulder and telling me I'm okay. Try not to move, try not to move. And I can see Tyler over here on this side. And he's a jokester. He loves to kick and make people smile. And he goes, you know, if you wanted to see me again today, because of course I saw him in therapy, he says, you didn't have to be so dramatic about it. And I just grin. And Christina hears, oh, she's awake, and runs over and grabs my hand, and she's holding on to it for dear life. And of course, I'm panicking because I have no idea what's going on. And so I'm squeezing it back for dear life. Then the physician assistant that works here comes over and she's checking me out. And thankfully, it's basically all cleared now after 3 days. But I had this huge red line. I went across here. It's still really tender, which is why I keep getting drinks of water. And then I had a little scratch, not big, but a little. But I had this huge red line that went all right along here. Because apparently I had fallen and hit one of the bars. I don't know if it was the leg or if it was the lift one. And my neck had gone like this. I should not do that, but it had hit like this. I'm not going to touch it now. And when it did, my neck had come forward, my head had come forward, and the bar had cut into my neck, and it had pressed all of that muscle and tissue and my vocal cords and my trachea and everything back and cut off my ability to breathe. And they have no idea how long I had been laying there seizing, so I was going whack, 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 whack. And then plop, no air at all. And they have no idea how long I was laying there. If Christina hadn't come back around as soon as she'd finished dropping off everybody's lunch on this wing, there's no telling when somebody would have come and checked on me. Sorry. Because they don't come pick the lunch trays up again for half an hour. They give you at least 30 minutes. And then they ask you before they take your tray away. So if you're not done, you can keep eating. And if she hadn't kept her word and come back as soon as she dropped off all the trays, it would have been a half an hour at a minimum before somebody found me. And Jonna said that I wasn't breathing when she got in there. And if Christina hadn't yelled for help, I wouldn't have been breathing at all. And I wouldn't have been breathing when she came back to collect the trays in half an hour. And they wouldn't have been able to get me back because I wouldn't have been breathing for a good 30 minutes. Because she's amazing and she cares and she kept her word and came back to check on me after 5 minutes. Jonna was able to get me back. And of course they sent me to the hospital and they checked everything over and they said there was a little soft tissue damage and everything was going to be sore for a while, but they couldn't find anything else wrong. And that was literally the most frightening. That was literally the most frightening experience of my life. And I owe Christina and Jonna everything. Because I wasn't breathing. And they came to my rescue. And they didn't hesitate. And they didn't doubt. And they didn't think, oh, well, she's faking. In a minute she'll move. They did their jobs. And they saved my life. And I thank them for it every day. So that's been my last 4 days. A head injury, a concussion, some embarrassing falls, and I almost died. All of which would have been preventable if this place allowed me to have care.
Hi everyone. I just want to remind you to please subscribe, like, and hit the bell so that we can receive more subscribers and so forth. We'll keep you updated on progress and what we're doing.